did that trip with a mentor who guided me through what he called an adventure for the 30 days in Africa. You would trek along on safari and have an external adventure, and then around the campfire you would talk about what was going on in your mind and your heart, and that would be the adventure. And so after the 30 days of adventure, I got back to the United States, and I had asked my mentor what he thought I should do next. And his view, and this was very, very discerning and on his part, his view was that I had all the warrior skills that I ever needed, and that I should overlay some counseling skills, and it was too late to go back and become a therapist or go back for graduate school. I didn't want to invest that time, so he suggested I go to coach training. So I did go to coach training for a year at the Hudson Institute in Santa Barbara, California, and I wasn't there the whole year, but I went back and forth and became a certified professional coach. And at the same time, I started traveling around the world looking at different legal systems, and it was in the course of those travels that I found the International Alliance of Holistic Lawyers, and also found the therapeutic jurisprudence movement. And I went to my first conference of the International Alliance of Holistic Lawyers in 1998 in Vancouver, and went to my first therapeutic jurisprudence conference later that same year, and met Bruce Winnick and David Wexler, who became very close friends of mine. They were the co-founders of the therapeutic jurisprudence movement. And then in 1999, went with Wexler and Winnick to a therapeutic jurisprudence conference in Dublin, Ireland, where I listened to Pauline Tesler speak on collaborative law. And I was hooked, and I had a vision to bring collaborative law to Texas, which I did, and did the first training for Texas lawyers in January of 2000, and formed an institute to promote collaborative law called the Collaborative Law Institute of Texas, and started that institute with my then law partner and still good friend Larry Hance. It was just the two of us, and today that institute has 450 lawyers and is self-sustaining. I was fortunate in that I was able to solicit money from a very wealthy client to get that institute up and running, and we were able to hire a public relations consultant and really make collaborative law a very popular model in Texas. We were also able to lobby the Texas legislature and get the first collaborative law statute in the nation passed in the Texas legislature in 2001. And so I had found really models and names and procedures and scholarship that fit the instinct to be a lawyer healer that I started in 1977. And so a little over 20 years later, I now found all these frameworks that I didn't know at the time, but they had been starting to emerge all over the world as a part of a critical mass or a tipping point. And I was very blessed that I just stumbled on to, well, I will give myself some credit. I was out looking for them, but still I stumbled on to most of them and was just delighted that there was all this research, and there were people like Stu Webb who had developed these wonderful collaborative models, and people like Pauline Tesler that were conducting dynamic trainings, and Winnick and Wexler introduced me to restorative justice and the problem-solving courts. And since then, really, I have been involved in all of those movements at the deepest level that I have been able to do, and especially collaborative law. I'm known in Texas as the godfather of collaborative law, and I have also been extremely active in the therapeutic jurisprudence and the problem-solving courts. I've been very supportive of the drug diversion court in Dallas, and have had the opportunity, and this has been a huge blessing, have had the opportunity to be really in the vanguard of that movement for the last 10 years. Then also something happened in 1999 that dramatically changed my life. I met Steve Kiva, who is the author of this wonderful book, Transforming Practices. And Steve Kiva did a profile of me for the American Bar Journal called The Passionate Practitioner. And it basically described my journey from an outlaw, impaired lawyer to a warrior and then to a healer. And that article was a turning point in my life, because although I had been pretty well known in some circles, that article showcased the concept of a lawyer healer nationally, and I started getting telephone calls from all over the United States to come and talk about being a lawyer healer, to talk about quality of life for lawyers, to talk about coaching for lawyers. And I had the opportunity to conduct a lot of workshops in law firms and bar associations, and coach a lot of individual lawyers. And in essence, Steve made a tremendous contribution to my world by the way he wrote that article. And so that was another very, very significant milestone in my life. And I really thought, and this was my own ego and my own arrogance, as the new I guess millennium dawned, I really thought that I pretty well had it made and had done everything that I needed to do, and I would just keep doing what I was doing, but I didn't need to do anything else, that I had done enough. And that and also I felt like I knew a lot. I felt like that I had learned enough, and people were telling me that I was a guru and an expert and a celebrity, and so I believed it. And so I felt like that I had it made and that I would just coast along. And then the next milestone was in 2003. And in 2003, something happened to me that had never happened before. I had a devastating depression. And although depression has plagued my family all generations, and I can trace it all the way back several generations to Ireland, although they called it melancholy then, I didn't have depression until I was 59 years old. And the depression was very severe. It nearly killed me. I had gone from a guy on top of the world to being acutely suicidal. And as a matter of fact, one night I got particularly desperate. I've always kept a pistol by the side of my bed. That's a good Texas tradition. And one night about 3 o'clock in the morning, I became so desperate that I hid my pistol in one part of my house and the bullets in another part of my house, so I'd have to go through 2 distinct steps to blow my brains out. And this was a devastating experience. It was humiliating, because I had been a guy that enjoyed the reputation of having my act together and being a role model to a lot of lawyers and a mentor to a lot of lawyers. And I really went through a period of total self-loathing and self-hatred and very, very low self-esteem, and tried to hide the depression, which was totally unsuccessful, because I had been so out there in my life that it was very clear that something was acutely wrong with me.